And we're live in 3, 2, and welcome everybody to another episode of the Planetmullins podcast. We're in season 6 now, and I'm thrilled to have an amazing composer and drummer based out of Los Angeles on the show. Today, the amazing Steve Stevens is with me. Hey, Steve.
Hey, what's up? What's up?
What's up? What's up? So, before we started recording the show today, I was mentioning to you how, we've known each other all these years, and with a lot of the people that come on that are kind of in our LA circle and stuff, I think that I know them and know what they've done until I read their bio, and then I go, holy crap, look at all this. Look at all this stuff, because you were telling me that there was a show that you were in with Shaka Khan was in your choir. Let's just start there with that story.
Yeah, it was I'm trying to remember Bill's name. Great drummer, did a lot of the gospel stuff. He was like running the music part of it.
Okay.
But yeah, it was like, they called me to do the drums for it.
Okay.
And it was on TV and it was called Good News. And yes, Shaka Khan was in the choir with a bunch of other people that you would know too. But it
Right.
was pretty amazing. Yeah.
Well, it's always interesting when you see these groups of people, like maybe it's a background choir. Like when I did Bruce Willis's wedding, it was the H.P. Barnum choir.
Oh,
And
yeah.
yeah, I mean, and that's a really famous choir that you probably worked with them. And I was playing piano for them that day. And then you just kind of look over and there's 60 people, but then you're like, well, man, is that Alicia Keys over there? Is that Alicia Keys? And is it some guys, is it Ollie Woodson from the Temptations? Wow, because the celebrity thing is something that we should definitely touch on, because now I think in 2023, a lot of my friends are categorizing themselves in this relatively new category, which is the broke celebrity. And
Yeah.
having been like, a mid-size or a D-lister, for many years, I know about the whole broke celebrity thing, because I remember you and I doing some really high profile stuff, but I also remember us like, going up an elevator with all this gear, trying to go the length of a football field with our stuff when it was 40 degrees out for $100.
Yeah.
So
I look, we've always had some crazy gigs in between and stuff. So,
well, what would you
it works
say?
out that way.
Yeah, like I know you've had your own bands like Broken Toys and stuff, but just for people that might not be familiar with you, Steve's worked with Robbie Krieger from The Doors, Al McKay from Earth, Wind and Fire, Ronnie Laws, Steve Oliver, Eddie Griffin, Artist Sax, Carol Weissman, Bell and James, Janet Jackson, Paul Taylor, Montel Jordan, Ellis Hall, Bruce Conti, Diane Shore, Platters. I mean, so obviously, and there's George Duke on there. Obviously, you have like a really wide range of styles and things that you can do on the drums.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. I would say one of my like I just the last person I was working with was Patty Austin. Okay,
Okay.
for the last couple of years at least. But before that, you would call this a real switch. Glenn Hughes, and I did a DVD with him also, and stuff in England and stuff, and it was great, because I got to go through South America and Eastern Europe and just nutty stuff, but 60,000 in the crowd, and stuff. So
Wow.
he's very big over there still. He's called the voice of rock.
Oh, really? I'm not familiar with him at all.
Oh yeah. He's a bad boy.
So he's like an English rock star or something?
Yep. But you know what? Stevie Wonder said that's his favorite white singer. He's Listen, he is that bad, and he uses a lot of that Stevie Wonder thing into the rock and roll thing. He's amazing, man.
Wow. Well, yeah, I knew way back in the day. I mean, maybe around the time I met you, I knew Nate Watts, the bass player, who was the
Oh yeah,
MD for Stevie.
yeah,
And
he's great.
one night I was hanging out with Nate and a couple of the guys from Stevie's band, and I was like, man, what's it like to work for Stevie Wonder? That's got to be amazing. And it wasn't Nate, but one of the guys said, well, when we get mad with him, we just set him up with really ugly girls because he doesn't know the difference after the gig and he can't see him anyway.
Oh man, crazy.
I know,
You know,
but now here's a guy that I because I know you like played on everything rap and hip hop, especially. How did you meet Montel Jordan? That's the "This Is How We Do It" guy. Is that you?
yes,
Is that you playing drums on that?
yes, and it was for a TV show.
Oh, really? Which
It,
one?
it- yeah, it was for a TV show, and I think I did a couple other things with him, but yeah, it was for a TV show, and it was a blast, and
That's
stuff. I was lucky enough to to kind of run around with a bunch of different people doing that stuff, man.
right. Well, Montel, was he was that a cool hang during the session, or was he all stressed out like Kanye gets all stressed out in his sessions and goes nuts?
Oh, nobody gets that stressed out, but at least I don't want to be around it. Okay,
Right,
but
right.
no, you know what, he was cool. Everything was fine, and stuff. I for me, it's just, I mean, I can only hang at the people who are like, okay to hang with. If
Right.
they're going to be a little bit on that other side, man, that doesn't work for me.
Well, doesn't it affect the music badly when somebody is just not able to focus on it? Because I did a session. I see Carmen Grillo is on your list of studios, and I've done a lot of stuff at Carmen's, and we were working with, Melvin Davis on drums, and just this all-star amazing band where the client was spending like $1,000 an hour, right? Because you
Yeah,
know how that is, like when you get a client and you're working for Capital or you're working for Concord or something, it's all union and everybody's getting scale plus.
right.
And this drummer was supposed to show up and we were all ready. And this client was not a known person. They were a person aspiring to get into the clique by just kind of hiring all the young
Gotcha.
cats. And that's actually for any of you out there that are trying to kind of get your thing going. That's one way to do it. If you can get a backer, hire all the top guys and be super prepared when you come in, you'll earn the respect of all these guys that can hook you up to do stuff like Steve
Right.
would do if you were on the session. So anyway, we're waiting on this guy, and he's been doing all the big gigs around the world with George Duke and all this other stuff, and we're waiting. Finally, about an hour and 15 minutes, he comes in. And he storms in, and he's just like the cloud of Pigpen in the Charlie Brown thing. He's got all the cloud and dark energy all over him.
Yeah.
And he brings in this horrible vibe. And Melvin Davis was the producer on the session as well as the bass player. And Melvin's like, man, where the hell have you been? He says, man, my girlfriend. And then he tore into like a 5-minute long explanation of all the problems with the girlfriend, which cost the client like $150
Yeah.
to listen to
Yeah.
this guy bitch. But the funny part was he had to dig his phone out of the toilet bowl because his girlfriend was mad that a call that he got, so she threw his phone into the toilet right before the session.
Yeah, well, I mean, there are those things that happen. You know what? You just brought up something. I was playing this really small little loungy gig. I didn't even bring all my drums. I had a kick drum, a hi-hat, and a snare, right? At this little place as a restaurant, right?
Right.
And I'm like going, okay, well, it's a gig. I'll, get over it. I look up, and sitting in the front of me is Shaka Khan. And it's a restaurant, right? And I'm like going, of course this would happen right now. And then I look up again, and sitting next to her is Joni Mitchell. Okay. And I'm like, what?
I actually think I know what gig you're talking about. Is it the Smokehouse?
No, it's not the Smokehouse, but I have played there a lot. Yeah.
Okay, because that's
You
a
know,
place that I've been doing some gigs with Rick Whitfield over there. And
yes, it was a Rick Whitfield gig.
oh, okay, that's good. That's great that we have that in common because I started doing his gig about 6 months ago, and anytime I mention his name, people get him confused with Rick Springfield. And so they kind of don't know who he is. But for those of you that don't know who Rick Whitfield is, man, the guy is a monster. He's a great singer, and he grew up in that neighborhood in Laurel Canyon, neighbors to Joni Mitchell,
Right.
Stephen Stills, and all these people. So,
Right.
so actually, they had Joni Mitchell's birthday when she turned 70 or 75. They had it at the Smokehouse. So,
Wow. Yeah.
yeah. So Rick's telling me, yep, I look out there and I know Joni's there because that's been his friend since childhood. But then it's like Axl Rose is out there and Steven Tyler and Slash. And,
Also, a lot of people, just for people knowing, his uncle was the guy who did Papa Was the Rolling Stone. He wrote that.
right, right. Yeah.
So
Rick
he
was
wrote a lot of Motown stuff back then.
right. Well, and that brings me to another point that because we're both veterans of the whole thing. Do you enjoy listening to any of the new stuff coming out, or do you just because I spent a lot of time with my friend Preston Glass, and he's in his house, it's all R&B classics. He doesn't listen to anything modern at all.
Gotcha. Um, you know, in my business, I have to listen to everything. Although I will say that a couple of weeks ago, I was talking with a woman who said, "Man, the the stuff now in hip hop is weak compared to the stuff that was in the '90s,"
Yeah.
and but then she proved it by playing some of the '90s stuff and then playing some of the new stuff, and I was like, "Oh man, she's right." I mean, it was really, really weak compared to that stuff. So, just so people also know that one of the reasons that hip hop came to be in the first place was that they took music out of the schools for a while, and
Right.
these people had to, yeah, these people had to find another way to, have fun and so on. So they would take other people's music and talk over it and do all this stuff over it.
Right.
Hey, it's just the way that it happened.
Well, yeah, that and the computer technology making it to where anybody could go down into their dad's basement and pull all of those albums, because you got Parliament Funkadelic and you got
Right.
Prince and you got Bootsy and you got the Daz Band and Hubert Laws, who's made a lot of money getting sampled. I mean, he's got very wealthy as far as I can tell from just being sampled. And you take that LP on the turntable and Bob James too. And then you record that in the computer, you make a 4-bar loop out of it, and then you just talk over the top of it. So for a guy that studied, like really me, that studied jazz harmony really thoroughly, I was kind of upset about even the 90s stuff and the late 80s stuff that came out because I'm going, well, this thing has something in one key. And I know that it's an E minor, but when they sample those horns on the top, they're an E flat minor and they're going at the same time as the other thing. And I would put my hands over my ears and nobody cared because it wasn't about the music, it was about the social message.
Yeah. I mean, there are some people who actually understand what's going on, but the good part is that I see a lot of rappers actually using live musicians again. Okay,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
at the
again.
beginning, it wasn't really happening, and stuff. So to me, that's a good thing, and stuff. And I don't know, man. I'm not gonna say that I like everything that's out there. Oh no, but at the same time, there are some people who are actually trying to do something right, and stuff. And it's crazy. I also look at, I don't know. I also look at, people who really, God, I don't want to say have no business being in the situation, but
Right.
you know, there was an article which showed all these one hit wonders, and some of the things were really bad. But you know what? The article, what blew my mind about the article is that some of them have like 14-15 million dollars because of that one silly hit that they did.
Exactly. That's a thing that coming at it from, because the way I came at music was through big band and Dave Brubeck and instrumental music. So I would see these bands like, maybe this isn't a great example, but like the Everly Brothers, they had that one super hit and a couple other hits. And then it's like, why do they get to play Vegas 5 nights a week for 50 years? And us jazz guys can't get anything happening. And if we're lucky, we can jump ship over to the other side and play the 2-chord Everly Brothers song and maybe pay the rent. It's a weird paradigm there, but
I know, man. Now I'm gonna say something that is gonna date me right now, but you're gonna love this story.
Well, that's good, because I certainly don't want to date you. I know people that do, but no, go ahead, Steve. What's your story? That's what we do here.
Okay,
yeah, we tell stories.
When I got this call to come to Vegas and play in this incredible horn band that was being managed by Steely Dan's management. Okay. And I mean, they were seriously amazing. Some of the guys were from Elvis Presley's band, and so on. Anyway, so it's just tight, just amazing band. And I'm this young kid going, oh man, I'm about to make it. Anyway, 2 weeks before the record was to come out, the CEO got fired. And because we were the super group from him, they fired us too. Okay. Now I'm like, I can't believe this luck, right? So I'm like, okay, that's not happening. And now, I got to figure out what else to do.
Right.
This guy comes in, he sees me play, and he goes, I have a gig for you if you want to do it. And he told me the gig, he told me who it was, and it turned out to be Tina Turner. She was just starting on her own. And so I went and met her, and she welcomed me to the band. She said, listen, I got to go to Europe for like 3 weeks, and then I'm back and we could get going. Right. Man, listen, in the 3 weeks that happened, of course, they loved her over there, and she got held over. Right. Now I've already quit the band, come to LA, which I know nothing about. I'm in a hotel. I'm running out of money. And I mean, this is bad, man. I'm running out of money. And I'm like going, what am I going to do here? And of course, they kicked me out of the hotel. My drums are still at the airport. The guy calls me and he says, listen, I'll hook you up with this other thing so you can make some money. And I didn't have a car. Okay, so I said, man, I can't do that. I said, what's the other thing that you had me hooked up with? Well, he said, Shaka Khan is doing her first record. And I'm like going, no, are you kidding? I can't do that either. Anyway, so I'm like going, this couldn't possibly get worse. Well, it did. Because I ended up being downtown LA going, what am I going to do here? And this little girl comes up to me and she's saying something I don't understand, but she said something about food. I go up with her to have the food. To make it short, I ended up with Reverend Moon and the Moonies in the mountains. It was just the most unbelievable. You went from sky high to all of a sudden all the way down on the ground. You know? Thank God I got out of all of that stuff, but it was like 3-4 weeks of hell, and stuff. And that's a good thing to tell any of the new people out there. It doesn't always happen the way you think it's gonna. you know.
Right. Well, that's, in the mentoring programs that all of us do, that's one of the things that, and I've discussed this with a lot of our LA studio and live buddies, is like you have to have a really thick skin to be in the music business, because
Yep.
there are these arcs of things and there are these challenging situations that really kind of determine, especially when you're young, like you were in that story, they really kind of determine
Yeah.
your ability to grow into an actual man or just be a wuss and quit. And
Right.
when I came back to LA in the 80s, I had a bass player that came with me, and I was the guy who was like, I am not gonna, whatever the challenge is, I'm gonna survive this because this is my shot. I got a Grammy nominated record. I'm being played on
Right.
150 stations. I've got a gig in Culver City at the Alley Cat Bistro. Remember that place? And then
Yeah.
I was playing at the Nucleus Nuance in Hollywood. I had all this stuff happening, and my bass player couldn't deal with just these variables because he was not that kind of cat. Like, if you're going to be in music,
Yeah.
you've got to be ready for, okay, so you land at LAX, you get robbed, you get strip searched for no apparent reason because you look like somebody else on the computer that has your initials. Then you go out, your ride doesn't pick you up. You take an Uber to a hotel where they don't have your reservation. You end up in the parking garage at Santa Monica 3rd Street Promenade with a guy smoking crack who takes your credit cards. And I mean,
Yeah.
it just goes on and on and on. And these kind of things, a lot of young people now are just not aware. I think it's not, I'm not going to say that
Yeah.
they're not all strong enough and like we're the badass dudes, and they're not. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying you have to be so strong, and you have to be able to always be looking forward and put the rest of the stuff behind you, man. You have to,
Right.
because if you
Right.
can't do that, because you and I have played some huge gigs and we played some really dubious
Yeah.
ones, like that one, that New
Yeah.
Year's thing where we showed up and the promoter had sent her grandparents to supervise us. And, and we're playing at this like swanky ass place in Newport Beach for a New Year's gig
Yep.
in California. So everybody's outside and this, that, and the other thing. And this like 80-year-old lady walks up with these bow ties and says it's mandatory that you wear these bow ties. And I'm looking at these ties, and you're looking at them, I'm thinking, man, I get a better bow tie than this at Goodwill, man. That's what that's what I'm thinking. But it's a strange thing. Like, they weren't going to let us play if we didn't wear, and there weren't branded bow ties that said, come to Xinguang Cafe or anything. Just these lousy
Yeah.
little bow
I
ties.
remember.
And, and then I know
But you know
got,
what? We were also very lucky. On the other hand, we were very lucky to play with some of the people we did with the China Club All-Star Band and
oh, let's
everything.
talk
If you
about the China
recall,
Club for a while. Yeah. Let's talk
yeah,
about that,
yeah,
because
it just,
I know since you worked with Shaka and
yeah.
stuff that you knew Gavin Christopher.
Oh man, are you kidding? I love that guy.
And, for those of you that don't know about Rufus and Shaka Khan, Gavin Christopher was one of the main writers early on, great singer, super cool
Yep.
guy, and unbelievable vocal talent. And what Steve's referring to with the China Club All Stars was a thing that started on Monday nights as a jam session in New York, I think in the 80s, right? And then they
Yep.
started doing it out in Los Angeles at this place called Barfly on Sunset. And Steve was in good company there, because the other two drummers that did it were Steve Ferroni from Tom Petty and Herman
Yep.
Matthews. Herman Matthews from
Yep.
Kenny Loggins, and then Steve Stevens.
Yeah.
So, I always enjoyed working with all you cats, and some of those celebrities that came in there were just crazy. I remember Julian Lennon coming in, and the bass player Tim Scott, and he looked over and he said, he looks just like Vic Damone.
Oh man, listen, I had Jason Bonham, who sort of drank a little bit too much back then. He's great now, but he's asking me to teach him how to play funk and stuff, and I'm like going, yeah, maybe on another time or something
Maybe,
like that,
maybe not.
or yeah, or Billy Gibbons coming in, and I'm not going, okay, Billy, what those hats that you wear? Where'd you get them? He's going, Kenya. I bought 100 of them. So it was a fun gig, man. It was a fun gig.
Well,
So
I got to play with Skunk Baxter, and you did too, who is a
yes,
really interesting character because he played on a lot of Steely Dan stuff, but he also
and
had
Doobies.
this, and Doobie Brothers, but he also had this second career as like a FBI secret agent type dude that would go out in the field and do all these like undercover operations, and we'd be like, man, what kind of a
He
day
had,
gig is
I
is
know,
the FBI,
you
That's a
know
day
what?
gig.
He had put a white paper out on rockets, and it was like widely held in the Pentagon and stuff. So I mean,
Right,
he really
right.
just
Uh,
amazing, man.
well, cats like that always always blow me away because being an artist and in the music thing, a lot of it is emotion, and frankly, a lot of the great players out there were college dropouts and stuff. I watched a
Yeah.
recent Keith Jarrett interview right at the end of his career when he got the National Lifetime Achievement Award, and he said, well, you're looking at 3 Berkeley dropouts in the Keith Jarrett trio, and it's Jack DeJohnette is a Berkeley dropout. I'm a Berkeley dropout. What's Gary Peacock? We all dropped out of Berkeley, so I don't know what that says about the jazz education system.
It is pretty amazing. Things like, man, I got to tell you a story. I know you don't know because I really don't tell people this, but you're
Oh,
going to love this.
and it's
So,
exclusive on the Planetmullins podcast.
oh yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
all right. Tell me.
So, when I first got to LA, I started working at a studio in Pasadena. And I was doing stuff for the studio, and in turn they would let me use it for my stuff.
Okay.
So I did a few of my own songs and everything. And anyway, one day I get called by the guy who runs it, owns it, or whatever, and he goes, "Listen, I got you a deal." And I'm like going, "What are you talking about?" He's
Right.
going, "No, I got your deal. It's these 2 guys from RCA, blah blah blah. They want to, they really like what you're doing, and they want to, sign you." And for 3 weeks, we're going back and forth, and I really didn't want to be up front. I don't like being up front. Okay, so anyway, at the end of the 3 weeks, they go, "Okay, we get it. You don't want to do this, and whatever." Okay,
Yeah.
and then they said, "We think we found somebody that we're going to go with," and I said, "Oh, great. Great." I said, I'm glad you found somebody, and I'm so sorry that I, put you through all that. I said, "By the way, who did you find?" It's this young girl named Madonna. And they ended up managing her for the first 10 years, and stuff. And that was
Wow.
my deal. So
Well, these behind the
crazy, man.
scenes, the behind the scenes stories are always, things that we should share with people because part of that ups and downs thing. And we're going to run out of time here in about 5 minutes, and there's some other stuff I want to talk
You got
about.
it.
But I'm going to tell a really quick story. So I had been coming from Denver out to LA, and I was playing at a club called At My Place in Santa Monica,
Oh
which
yeah,
you're probably
remember it.
familiar
Yeah.
with. So
Yeah.
Kenny G came to my debut gig in LA, and he heard me play. He was sitting right off to the piano side, and the piano was on stage right. And I came off the stage, and I knew who he was, and he said, "Man, you need to be giving Jeff Lorber piano lessons, man. I mean, I can't believe just how unbelievably good you are, and I'm getting ready to make an album." And I said, "Okay, that's great." He says, "If you have any songs, man, I'm looking for material right now because I don't write a lot of songs at this point. So, reach out to me and talk to my manager and this and that." So I go back to Denver, and I'm all excited because I know Kenny is signed to Lorber. They're on Arista. Lorber's doing huge. Kenny's gonna like break out with this thing. So I go into the studio, I pay all this money, I get all this music together. And at that time, it was on cassette. So I write this letter to Kenny. Dear Kenny, it's Rob Mullins. Here's the music that I did. I hope you'll consider. Here's my number, and I give it to my assistant, right? So I don't hear anything, and I don't hear anything, and I never hear anything. And then I come to find out much later that the album is the one with Songbird on it. It goes double platinum. I have no involvement. And then eventually I determined that my assistant sent him the wrong cassette.
Oh,
She sent, I was working with a dance company, and she sent all these little piano things I did for ballet off to Kenny G. And I got screwed out of the biggest opportunity of my whole life just because my assistant wasn't paying attention. Now, I want to talk, before we're out of time, a little bit about your band, because you've got a band called Broken Toys. Tell us about that.
Yeah, basically, I wanted to do something that, you know, had the old school, but brought in some of the new thing. And really, it came to, actually, I got totally surprised when the nominations came through for R&B. 3 different ones. I think it was just, you know, classic, progressive, and I forgot what the third one was. But, you know, it really was a shock to us. It also came down to people, if people know that it's usually about 21,000 entries into this thing in the first place.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. And so we were down to the last 50, which is amazing for being an unknown band.
Sure.
And, you know, I was just pleased, man. But unfortunately, we were with a really small label, had no money, and kind of died on the vine after that, you know, and stuff. So still been putting out, you know, things on it and everything. But I'm working with a lady named Wendy Smith right now, and we're just trying to put some new stuff together. All good.
I think that's great, man, because the fact that, you know, after all these massive things that you've done on the high end, and then all of the sad stories on the low end, that you're still doing it, I commend you for that, because in this past couple of years with the pandemic and stuff, and as a lot of our friends age, a lot of cats just give up and die, commit suicide. Just, you know, I see some of those guys.
But like you said at the beginning, man, it's like, you know, if it's in you, you got to just find a way to continue. You know, I listen, and I know we're out of time, but I remember the one time I quit. I was off for 3 months. I get this call from this British lady. Hello, we'd like to have you come and audition, you know. And I said, how'd you get this number? I thought, I hung up because I thought it was, you know, but it turned out that it was real. And as soon as they told me the amount of money for the tour, I was like, tomorrow? I'm good. Man, I rushed to get my drums out of the garage, set them up in the house, try to get it back, you know, because it's been 3 months, and went down and did the thing. Oh, it was for George Michael's. Okay. At that time, you know, so it was good money. Okay. But, and I came in like second. So, you know, if I would have been playing all the time, you know, anyway, I'll never quit again.
Well, it's a funny thing too, because it all kind of goes full circle, because you could have taken that tour, got out there for the great money, then he gets arrested in a public park at midnight in the bathroom. And then, and what happens, folks, is that, you know, these kind of things happen. And the first thing that they do is they say, well, we're not going to pay the band because we need the money to bail George out of jail. So you'll be in freaking Bulgaria on this tour. And they're like, I'm sorry, man, we don't have your money, Steve. Right. So, but anyway, man,
I've seen some people go through that.
Oh, I went through it, and it's a whole story for another day. But anyway, if someone wants to reach out to you, to hire you or do another interview show or have you sing and play on their record? Because I've worked with your excellent singer and lyricist too. How do they get a hold of you?
It's Stevie Sticks Drums, at gmail.com.
Stevie Sticks Drums,
Um,
Stistix drums at Gmail. Okay.
uh-huh.
All right,
Yeah.
cool. And do you have a website or a Facebook you want to talk about?
Facebook is just my name, and
Okay.
stuff. It's all good. I do have links to things, but if they get a hold of me at either of those things, I can send them a link. And I
Okay.
have the most ridiculous long, video of different things I've done for different people. Okay. So
Great, man. Well, I can't thank you enough for coming on and also for just being such a good friend for more than 30 years and a longtime associate. We've never had a bad gig. We've always had a great time, even when we played with players that were really bad around us.
yeah.
And I'm not gonna mention those names because I don't
Please
have time.
don't.
It's too long a list and we don't have time. So anyway, this is gonna
Hey,
wrap
Rob,
it up,
very,
folks.
very, thank you so much, man. I had a great time.
Beautiful. So that's going to do it for today's episode of the Planet Mullins podcast. And don't forget, like and subscribe to the channel. It's also on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple, and anywhere else you want to be. So that's it for today, folks. And we'll see you next time.